where did that love for storytelling begin? And then what are
Mm.
some of your favorite stories outside of scripture that you like,
Ooh,
man, I get it, whether it's a movie or a book.
yeah, great question, Nate. So a couple of places. So one, my mind has always been, I've always been a very logical thinker who's like needed to try to find the logical solutions to things. And that gets you in trouble sometimes. I think that's a beautiful gift and I'm all for it. It gets you in trouble when it comes to some elements of life and the mystery of life
Yeah.
and of God. Um, and so like I'm a huge proponent of apologetics and I love reading William Lane Craig and all of those guys. And there is something to faith that goes beyond uh, the logic and the linear logic. And I've always found that storytelling is the best way for me to get out of here and into here. I think that's why Jesus was telling stories all the time. He'd be like, "Well, the kingdom of heaven, it's kind of like, and then he'd go into a story. I think it was Lewis that said that stories are the thing that allow us to navigate around the watchful dragons, that the barriers that we put up and allow us to really talk about the real stuff. And so when I started to see one that Jesus was doing that, but two that there are so many amazing storytellers out there in the world, I would watch them and be like, yeah, that's resonating with me. I'm with you here. And so when we were traveling in 2012, we made a documentary about it. And what we discovered along the way is this documentary is going to be so much cooler if we just find amazing men and women who are doing amazing things for the kingdom of heaven and tell their story and focus on them and learn to ask really good questions to bring the best stuff out and then weave all of these stories together to ultimately tell the bigger story of the gospel. And so that would probably be like the catalyst for when I fell in love with storytelling. But then getting back from that, just realizing that writing is something that comes really naturally to me. I'm an internal processor. And so after like a hard day of work trying to build the church, going to the coffee shop for 2 hours and writing a story about it to communicate it in a different way is actually like the healthiest thing for me. I get to the end of that session and I realize like that was basically me just like having coffee with a friend, but it's just my way of doing
Yeah.
it. And so, yeah, I started writing books and most of them, my mom read one and she was like, yeah, I didn't get it. And I was like, yeah, I'm still working on it. So most of them are just like for me. But then eventually started getting good enough, that I was ready to start sharing it with the world. So I would say those are my main inspirations. Now, as far as favorite stories outside of scripture, so I'm like the classic. I know this is the classic answer, but Lewis is like I just
Yeah.
think C.S. Lewis is the best, right? And so like Narnia really was pivotal for me, and still is. His ability to get at some of the deeper truths with like a kid's
Yeah.
story, I think is
Yeah.
so beautiful. Throw Lord of the Rings in there as well. Like those two guys are just so special. But I grew up on Star Wars, big Harry Potter nerd. I'm a nerd at the end of the day. And so those types of like fantasy fiction, like
Yeah.
obviously not real, but getting at deeper truth that are real, that kind of stuff is my favorite.